Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Mahpood with you at PTB World. In today's show, we will be taking a look at two very important stories. The first story is going to be with reference to the news that we have heard coming in from the Interior Minister as well as other sources that talk about the Premier Nawaz Sharif's return and then, of course, taking a look at what that means, especially for elections in Punjab. Up till now, we saw that the PML-N had adopted a wait-and-see approach. We hadn't really seen any sort of action or decisions coming forward with regards to the PTI chairman's threat or announcement of the dissolution of assemblies if early elections are not called, and then also his later offer of negotiations for the government to come forward to, which if doesn't happen is going to be followed by the dissolution of assemblies. And now it seems that the PML-N perhaps is trying to dispel the impression that they are scared or running away from the possibility of elections in Punjab, and so have moved forward with regards to what they call important measures and steps towards preparations for elections in the province, of which the return of Nawaz Sharif is also an important aspect because that is going to tilt the party's favor in that direction. So we're going to be taking a look at this particular development in terms of when we're going to be expecting the return of Nawaz Sharif, what sort of preparations are in place for elections in Punjab. Has the government decided to move ahead with the campaigns, with the plans and actions moving forward regarding candidates and constituencies, which seems to be the case coming in from what Rana Sanaullah has spoken. And then, of course, in terms of whether or not there even has arisen such a situation, because we see that so far we've only seen a call for the dissolution of assemblies from the PTI and not really a step forward in that direction. This is something that the Interior Minister has also challenged the PTI chairman regarding, of course, the fact that this is going to be something that the PML-N is not going to run away from, and that their only concern with regards to this particular move is that they don't support it. But if there needs be a call for elections in Punjab or in KP, then they will be carried out within 90 days, and that the PML-N is ready for any such challenge and, of course, is waiting for the PTI chairman to also follow up on his words. That is going to be the focus of our first segment today. Our next segment is going to take a look at what the Prime Minister also tweeted about today, which is the SARC Charter Day that was adopted back on December 8, 1985. And the Prime Minister has called for the revival of this very important body and has talked about how the countries have lost a lot of value that could have come out from this particular organization, and that Pakistan is ready to make efforts for its revival. And of course, we know that Pakistan was scheduled to host the summit back in November 2016, which was going to be the 19th summit, but there was, of course, a lot of issues with regards to India, backed also and supported by countries like Afghanistan and Bangladesh and Bhutan, who have talked about the particular efforts with regards to Pakistan hosting the summit that has caused a lot of delay. And so for many, many years, we haven't really seen any sort of progress with regards to this very important institution, very important body that the Prime Minister has reiterated also. So we're going to take a look at what that means and what all Pakistan can do with regards to its revival and what sort of measures need to be put in place also with regards to the countries who have previously supported India in this decision. That is going to be the focus of our show today. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farooq Batafi. And for our first segment regarding the PML-N's preparations to welcome Mr. Nawaz Sharif, and then, of course, what is going on in Punjab and the overall political situation, we've been joined by Dr. Niaz Murtaza, who's a political analyst. Thank you very much, Dr. Niaz, for joining us and being a part of the debate. And let me start with you. Earlier, we, of course, heard the fact that whenever we talked about the issue of dissolution of assemblies, and just yesterday, we were talking to Rana Mahpood Saab from the PML-N, who talked about how this is something that should be forgotten and not discussed because it's not going to happen. The PTI is not going to follow through with what they have talked about with regards to the dissolution of assemblies. But now it seems that they want to talk about something else, which is that they want to move ahead with the preparations for the welcome of Nawaz Sharif with regards to how that is going to impact the elections in Punjab. So what does this mean? Is it the PML-N's preparations for something that is imminent, that the PTI is in fact dissolving the assembly in Punjab?
Well, it may be linked to that, but there is the fact that Mr. Nawaz, hello,
Yes, go ahead.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, Dr. Niaz, go ahead.
Okay, okay. So, it may be linked to this fact, but there is also the fact that Mr. Nawaz Sharif has been away for over 2 years now, and the situation in his party is a bit dicey at the moment, given the fact that it had to take over the reins of the government at a very critical point where Pakistan had already entered into an economic crisis near the beginning of this year under PTI, and then it had to take all those very unpleasant and unpopular decisions relating to increasing, fuel prices, other prices, all of which have increased inflation and caused a lot of hardship to the people. And obviously, some of that is being reflected in, the way the results in the by-elections have gone, some surveys that have been done. So it's critical that there needs to be, a firm hand at the helm of affairs of the party for long now. And now the fact that, the PTI is threatening to, dissolve the assembly, which may mean that, elections in all crucial Punjab may be held within 3 months if the PTI manages to go through its threat and actually dissolve them. So I think it's high time that Mr. Nawaz Sharif, returned. He faced, certain politically motivated cases, and it's becoming more and more clear, especially given, the judgment, the verdict from Islamabad High Court on Mariam's case. uh, Clearly said that you were not even able to prove your case against Nawaz Sharif. So how can you prove the case against Mariam on abetment? So that's a very clear indication that his cases will get reversed if he comes back. So I think it's time for him to come back and take over his party. Now, obviously, in a formal sense, he may not be able to do that because there is also the Supreme Court verdict which says that he cannot be party president until the other judgment against him gets reversed, which is a lifetime one. But at least informally, I think his presence here will make a huge difference. So I think all this unclarity about some person saying this, some person saying that, it should end. There should be a clear statement from the party, from the spokesperson of Mr. Nawaz Sharif himself, whoever it is, or from the Secretary General of Pakistan Muslim League, that Mr. Nawaz Sharif is planning to come on this and this date, and that date should be sooner rather than later, not just because of the PTI decision to dissolve, but even otherwise the way politics is going.
Right, absolutely. And it may be, of course, a question mark at this moment of when exactly he's arriving, but it seems that the PML-N is pointing towards his return, particularly before the elections scheduled in October next year. And also with regards to the kind of planning and engagements that are being made, perhaps we also want to look at exactly why that is happening. Farooq, if we put even Mr. Nawaz Sharif's return at the side for the moment, there is, of course, also the conversation around what is going on in Punjab with regards to committees being formed, or the active role of union councils, and then, of course, talks with the candidates as well from different constituencies. All of this point towards an action plan moving forward for elections in Punjab. But why is this happening now at the moment when so far we haven't really seen any action coming in from the PTI, and then so far the PML-N didn't seem to be taking the PTI's threat very seriously?
Right, Sana, I think the basic reason or explanation would be that PML-N or other parties, allied parties, don't want to be caught, unprepared. Of course, the initiative still is with PTI, so there's always a possibility that PTI will kick the bucket and will head for the next election in the province of Punjab. But regarding federal election, I thought Rana Sana was very clear that the federal elections are going to take place in October. So regardless of what happens in coming days, PML-N and its allies realize that they have been actually, because of these circumstances that Dr. Niaz Mirza was actually pointing out, the kind of difficult decisions that had to be taken and the way it actually had an impact on the electorate and the way it has actually in many ways helped PTI. It was inevitable that the ruling coalition will find itself a bit in disadvantage. So now they have to actually start mobilizing their support base so that they have some level playing field when it comes to elections. Regarding Mia Nawaz Sharif's return, I mean, we have been hearing about this for quite some time, and I totally understand that he is ill and he has to actually complete his treatment. And that actually takes me back to 2018 when he was visiting his wife who was ill, and people started, there was this din of people saying that he should come back and they should immediately attend to political exigencies. And at that time also I said that the family comes first. First he should attend to the wife and then he should come back. Of course, he has to return, but it can wait. At this moment, let his treatment complete, and whenever he feels healthy enough to travel, he should come back.
All right. Dr. Niaz, considering that when we take a look at what is currently moving forward with regards to this dissolution of assemblies from the PTI, whether or not they go through with it is of course a question mark still. But at the moment, we also don't really see any move forward with regards to what the PTI chairman talked about regarding the offer of talks or negotiations. And in fact, what the Interior Minister has pointed towards is a sort of challenge for him to follow through with his words. So does that mean that there is no progress or no step forward with regards to any possibility of a dialogue?
Well, I mean, I think there are different kind of messages coming around. On the face of it, it doesn't look like, there's any talks going on. But then it's also significant that Mr. Ishaq Dar has met the president 2 or 3 times in rapid succession in the last few weeks. And, there are some reports that some kind of, negotiations or talks for talks may have been taking place between the two, because Mr. Ishaq Dar is, of course, a very heavyweight who's considered next to, Mr. Nawaz Sharif within the party, maybe even higher than Mr. Shehbaz Sharif in the pecking order. So I think there may be some going on, maybe, some talks being held to lay the groundwork on, how the talks may proceed, because actually sometimes, that is the most difficult, part of negotiation, setting the parameters, the rules of engagement and so on. So maybe that difficult part is now happening, and that may lead to, some more overt negotiations happening, which happen between, well-known people saying that, they're holding these talks the way we've seen in the past. But in terms of, the decision to, dissolve the assembly, it seems to have, run into some problems within the party and definitely within the coalition, because, some of the interviews that Mr. Munis Ilahi, as well as his father, the Chief Minister Pervez Ilahi, have given, give the impression that they are not very keen to dissolve the assemblies at the moment, and that's understandable, because this may be their last chance to be a chief minister in Punjab. If PTI wins, then with sufficient margin, then it may not need PMLQ. So it's a tough decision for Mr. Pervez Ilahi, and I think that's causing some confusion in the ranks of PTI. Yeah. So, first 6 months, there was all this talk about, the dharna and the long march. Took 6 months to start, and then, 4 weeks to get from just Lahore to Islamabad, and then it was abandoned, and then, this new truck ki batti, as it is called in Pakistan.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Saab, a point of clarification, just seeking a little bit of clarity regarding what you just said. When you were talking about Ishaq Dar Saab actually meeting the President of Pakistan, there was this implication that there was some kind of negotiations between PML-N and PTI. The office of President is supposed to be apolitical. And we have seen that despite a push and pull of PTI, the President has managed to maintain some semblance of neutrality. In that situation, would you really think that the presidency or the President has the kind of influencing power regarding PTI, and that's why this interaction should amount to any kind of interaction between PTI and PML-N, sir.
Well, I think, as I said, it's not about, the actual talks. It's talk about talks, laying, the framework, the groundwork on, how talks will proceed, what issues will be there. I don't think he's making decisions for the PTI, but he's just acting as, sort of a post person between the two parties, trying to, remove some of the misgivings, trying to, reduce the temperature and make it all possible for the two parties to come face to face, because the way things are now, they can't even come face to face and have a civil discussion until some of the misgivings, some of the mistrust and anger is diffused beforehand, before the heavyweights from both sides come face to face. So in
Right.
that sense, I think he can play a useful role. Obviously, the president is supposed to be above the fray, and so that just means that he's not overtly siding with just PTI and acting as one of its ministers, ex-ministers, or that kind of a role, but somebody above the fray who can help reduce the temperatures and
Right.
help two sides come together.
Right, and Dr. Niaz, earlier you were talking about how the Long March and all of the other talks with regards to what the PTI kept mentioning were dragged on for very long. Could this also be something when we talk about what is going on in KP or Punjab, or the kind of measures that the PTI chairman keeps pointing out, be also dragged on for very long, and then before you know it, we're in October 2023?
Yeah, I mean, that's how it seems to be turning out. I think a lot of decisions are taken when you're desperate, you just, clutch at any straw that comes your way. So I think, the long march decision was poorly thought out, and that's why it took 6 months to start and then 4 weeks to, go through it. And then it was abandoned at the end because, it wasn't a very powerful tool to dislodge the government or get early elections, and then they just grasp at whatever they thought would be a good idea. Now, if they can go through this decision with everybody on board, all the allies on board, it could put a lot of pressure on PMLN. And it doesn't have too many good options to avert it, because I don't think it has the votes for a no, to bring a no confidence motion, because if it had, some of the people would have been known by known, who would jump ship. And then there is the fact that it's not easy to jump ship now, given the political situation in Punjab with inflation, and seemingly the fact that PTI has been able to gain some ground at the expense of PMLN, and there may not be too many people willing to jump ship at the moment. And then the fact that the Supreme Court has made it so difficult for people to change parties or change their loyalties. So a no confidence vote is not easy for PMLN to swing. Mr. Zardari has jumped into the ring, but still there doesn't seem to be much movement on that. So at that level, the PMLN seems almost resigned that if the coalition does decide to go ahead, there is not much it can do to stop them. And their big hope seems to be that they don't go through it because of the fissures between the coalition. And I think their best hope is to somehow get Mr. Pervez Elahi on their side. Without that, I think it's going to be very difficult for them to swing a change in the government.
Right.
And, yeah.
Right, and Farooq, if the elections do go ahead in Punjab right now or in the near future, when we take a look at the kind of statements coming in, of course, from the PML-N side, they seem pretty confident of their victory, especially if Mr. NAWAZ Sharif is to return. The PTI, of course, is making its own claims, but their move is largely pointed towards a call for early elections. And then, of course, there is the PPP as well, and as Dr. Niaz was talking about, Mr. Zardari also being involved with the conversations as to what needs to be done moving ahead. What do you envision in terms of the political parties and the way that they'll pan out if elections were to be held?
Right, and once again we have entered into the fray
Yes, we do.
or
But with
region
you we
of
can.
speculation and
Yes.
prediction, which I don't do. But I can certainly actually draw a regression model and I can tell you which party has advantage over the others if elections were held today.
Right.
And first of all, it is clear that PTI has the advantage of being the anti-incumbency party. And of course, they had this narrative, and there's still this memory or muscle memory, so to speak, of the last, elections that took place in Punjab, where they actually kind of carried the day. But having said that, many of their narratives have fallen sideways, and that's why, and of course, Imran Khan Saab cannot, go out and ask for votes for 4 months, as was pointed out by Parvez Elahi Saab. So that actually restricts their appeal or their capacity to get the kind of votes they need. The second party, of course, is PML-N. The problem with PML-N is it is a very solid performer, but the problem with the party is that it listens to too many YouTube and television pundits.
Okay.
And because of that, they keep on getting confused. In rapid succession, they keep on changing their leadership, at least in government. And that's why nothing seems to stick. And that is actually a problem. Otherwise, if they manage to have some kind of stability within their ranks, I'm sure that they will deliver quite well. The only time when I saw them struggling was in 2018, and that was because it seemed there was this impression that the party was not that united. And there are those fault lines that are quite visible. Regarding People's Party, Sana, the amazing thing, and I never thought that I will say it, that the person who seems to be most redeemed throughout past 7 or 8 months is Asif Ali Zardari. All of a sudden, he seems to be a servant, someone who understands the game well, and he plays the game well as well. Remember that while the elections or by-elections took place, and the fact that the government had to actually take very difficult decisions, People's Party is hardly ever blamed for whatever is going on in the country, and that is amazing. That is some trick to pull off, and Asif Ali Zardari has actually managed to do it, even in by-elections. Remember that in southern Punjab they managed to get seats, and that was also the case in Karachi. So I think at this moment, because PML-N and PTI have more or less the same kind of base, because of their ideological similarity, they seem to keep on cancelling each other out. And if that happens in the longer run, not in Punjab though, at this it is too early for Punjab, but federal in national elections, if they are to take place, I think People's Party will have a lot of traction in the elections.
All right. Dr. Niaz, you wrote a piece regarding the lesser evil, and you argue that the PTI no longer, or is perhaps was never an appropriate label for them. And then when we take a look, of course, now moving forward, what is going to evolve in terms of all of the political parties' fate, don't you think that the PTI perhaps has earned many other labels as well to its credit, despite whatever incidents have come forward? And so perhaps that may no longer be an argument that they would be counting on, but there can be others that they would be relying on at the moment.
Well, it's a tricky situation. And like Farooq, I would not like to hazard very strong guesses about what's going to happen. But clearly, there's been a rebound in the fortunes of PTI. Now, is that rebound enough for it to, actually win an election? That's hard to say. The one thing is, it's not very wise to, project from by-elections to general elections. Just as, it's very unsafe to, project from a T20 match to a test match between the two same sides. Because, in a very small, short match, even a weak team can overwhelm a strong team. But the real test is test match, which is spread over 5 days, and the same logic applies to a general election because the scale is so much bigger. that some of the tricks that you can do in a small by-elections,
So,
and
Dr. Saab, which party has Abrar in its ranks?
well, I would say, PTI is a T20 specialist. This is what it
Okay.
has shown so far. That in
All right,
big,
Dr. Niaz, unfortunately, I'll have to stop there because we have to move to our next segment. But I guess one thing that definitely goes to Mr. Khan's credit is the political jargon with reference to cricket that he's given to
Yeah,
all
yeah.
of us. We'll take a short break and we'll be back with the next segment.
गेम ऑन है।
Welcome back to the debate. We will now talk about the SARC Charter Day, which the charter that was adopted back in 1985 on this day. And to mark today, the Prime Minister, SHARIF, has also talked about the importance of this particular institution and for its revival, and that Pakistan will, of course, be moving towards that direction. And he reiterated the value that this body holds and what all it can bring to its countries. Thank you very much, Mr. Najmus Saqib, who's a former ambassador. He's joined us online in the debate, and thank you very much for waiting for us as well. When we take a look, of course, at this particular body and the way that over the past many years, the particular value that it held or the way that this needed to progress was unfortunately blocked by actions by India and other supporting countries as well. What all can possibly be achieved towards its revitalization, as the Prime Minister emphasized today? Because, of course, Pakistan, again, is limited in its choices to bring forth the revival of this institution. So what is there at our disposal to do so?
To begin with, I would like the Foreign Office to actually write a letter to this effect, because these days you send messages through tweets. It's a very good gesture from Pakistan, and we know that for the last 6 years, there is, SARC has been in a limbo. I remember in 2004. I was director SARC, when Islamabad, Pakistan hosted the 12th SARC summit. Now it is our turn to host that. A couple of things that we have achieved through this offer. One is that, India is, of course, all of us, we know, they are not going to even respond to this, either through tweet or any other media. Why? Because it has been like this ever since, as you have said, since 1985. It is a common knowledge that India is there to hijack any movement which could show that Pakistan is also, Pakistan exists. So, diplomatically, I would say that it is, a winning situation for Pakistan, because India would be in a spot to say no or to stay quiet. As far as the other members are concerned, all of us, we know that Afghanistan and, Bangladesh and Bhutan, they are supporting India not only regionally but in the SARC sphere of influence also. The other countries, Nepal and Sri Lanka, they are kind of neutral. Sri Lanka used to toe the Indian line, initially. Now they stay neutral. Pakistan is all alone in this, endeavor. Now, to talk about the reality is that India, SARC is run by India. Number two reality is that although the charter of SARC says that there are no political issues to be discussed at this forum, but still, since 1985-86 till today, the movement towards a ministerial meeting or even senior official meeting or particularly the summit meeting where the presidents and prime ministers, they come and decide about the future of this organization. India would not like it to progress politically. Now, the last thing about your question is that for SARC to be revitalized, it is like, living in a fool's paradise. Why? Because Pakistan and India are not in a position to have even, the basic working relationship. Right. Pakistan has issues with Afghanistan. Bhutan is considered as, one of the states of India. So we are not going to see any positive development as far as the revitalization of SARC is concerned. But right. I can assure you that because of this gesture of Prime Minister Sharif, people are regionally, we have won at least one front at the diplomatic level.
Right. Ambassador Saab, I'm glad that you're with us because you're an old policy hand. I wanted to actually ask you about vitality of SARC itself. You have actually addressed the matter to considerable length, but it takes me back to the COVID days when there were interactions that were taking place regarding how to handle COVID, especially through the SARC framework. But then we also saw that India has actually tried to build a parallel system called BIMSTEC, where of course there are two more countries, Myanmar is there and Thailand is also part of it, but Pakistan is not there, Afghanistan is not there. Do you think that at this moment it is even rational to consider SARC alive and that it exists?
Well, if you ask me, frankly, SARC has been dead for the last 6 years. And I don't think any life coming into it in the coming days, unless, and it is a very big unless, that Pakistan and India somehow, confidence-building measures, they come on the negotiating table. Even in that direction, the actions taken by New Delhi in August 2019, the status of Kashmir, 35A, Article 370, changing the demography, and for Pakistan, of course, Kashmir is the most important, issue as far as the foreign policy is concerned. So, although this SARC forum is not to discuss political issues, and we talk about construction, we talk about railways, we talk about trade and commerce, we talk about exports and imports, and, such harmless areas. But the fact remains that it has been politically motivated, it has been politically engineered, basically by India. Now, India's aim, we should not compare ourselves with India in many spheres. For instance, as far as their, aim is concerned, they want to be the permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. They are the members of the new quads that have been happening, around the world. They are the policemen of the United States here. They have to contain China, and they have to do, Akhand Bharat and all that, and they are wishful thinking. For Pakistan, SARC has never been, and I, say it again, SARC has never been a source of strength for Pakistan. because I have attended the meetings. I have been to 2 or 3 summit meetings. What happens is that if India is there to have something in its own favor, rather than for the regional organization which is SARC. Now,
Right.
the
And I
future of
understand
SARC.
that, Ambassador Saab. Yes. Complete your thought. Complete your thought, please.
Sorry.
Finish the thought, sir.
Right. Ambassador Saab will continue the discussion, but let me just also go to Dr. Niaz Murtaza, who's with us. Dr. Niaz, you must have been listening to what the ambassador was mentioning, which is, of course, regarding the possibility of revitalization, which he doesn't seem to see, and then also with regards to what contribution SARC has made towards Pakistan in the past, which also perhaps doesn't amount to much, according to his opinion. Do you agree with both these sentiments? And then, if yes, then moving forward, what value is Pakistan looking for?
And Dr. Saab, could you also address the issue of bilateral relationship between India and Pakistan? While we keep on actually exchanging harsh words, and we have done that, something actually clicked in 2021 when we saw the LOC ceasefire agreement once again.
Yeah, yes, I agree with both the points that SARC revival doesn't look very likely at the moment, given the attitude of India towards Pakistan. Until and unless that bilateral relationship is working, SARC cannot really work. And SARC has not been able to take off, unlike other regional bodies like ASEAN, a few in Africa and Latin America, not to talk about the European Union, primarily because of the fact that the two biggest countries don't get along with each other, and that is hobbled the development of SARC. So I think the first thing needs to be getting the relationship between India and Pakistan going. And once that relationship is back on, a good sound footing, then of course, SARC has a lot of potential. India has made this other body, which has its own role, but it cannot be a replacement for a SARC with Pakistan, because in so many ways, India and Pakistan are intertwined. The shared rivers, the shared boundaries, then the link onwards to Central Asia. So SARC has its own role despite the presence of this other body that India has made. Then the issue comes back to how to get India and Pakistan talking to each other. And given all the political uncertainties in Pakistan, I don't think in this next 9 months much is going to happen on that relationship, and it might be best to leave it for the new government that comes in after the new elections, and hopefully by that time, because India also seems confused on what to really do with Pakistan. They try to isolate Pakistan internationally. That hasn't worked, and after the return of PDM, the bad relationship that Pakistan had developed with the West, that has been mended, even with Saudi Arabia, UAE. So Pakistan is back in business internationally, and at in one or two instances even at the expense of India, with the statements that Germany made and so on.
Dr. Saab, why wait for 9 months? What is there to lose if both countries can actually talk and try finding some kind of amicable agreement regarding further talks?
India would see whether this government is going to continue or not. Why waste so much time? Because it takes a lot of diplomatic effort, and if the government is going to change in 9 months, it takes 9 months to even start talks between two countries like India.
If all elements of the state are aligned together behind such an initiative, will there be any harm?
Well, there won't be harm, but I just feel that there isn't enough time and space, with so many other issues eating the attention of the Pakistani government,
Right.
the flood, economic crisis.
All right. Ambassador Saab, when we take a look at the fact that The SARC, of course, hasn't met for so many years. There hasn't been a summit, and of course, you mentioned that it is a dead body and has been for so many years. What really is the consequence of the fact that there hasn't been much happening for so many years? Does the body automatically just ends, or why is it that we're carrying this label with us if this is just a skeleton and nothing more?
And Ambassador Saab, also a question regarding climate change, because Pakistan recently, faced extreme weather, incident, and similar kind of situation might be there in India, in some parts of India. So both the countries have something common regarding that, on that front as well. And SARC was the best forum to address that. Don't you think that there's still need for SARC, even if there's no hope for SARC?
I don't think India needs SARC to promote and project its foreign policy. It has never been like that. India is a huge, big country, and it is Pakistan, which would like to be regionally acknowledged, and all these areas that I have, previously mentioned, plus this climate change also. The problem is that, Prime Minister Modi, for instance, a few months ago, addressing a gathering, he said that it's difficult to talk to, Pakistan because I don't know who to talk to, whether it is the political, the government or the army. Now that, the army has clearly stated, the former COS, General Bajwa, in his last statement, the address at the GHQ, he said that army will stay apolitical. So it will have no, connection or no relation with the political parties or whatever elections, etc. Now I think Islamabad can say with a little bit of confidence that now that army is away, we are here to talk about anything and everything. Now, for your viewers and for both of you, I must say that when we talk about Kashmir, they don't respond. And I'm talking about the foreign secretary level talks that I used to attend, or the foreign minister level, meetings, or even prime ministers. There were a glimmer of hope in a couple of instances, when former President Musharraf was there in New Delhi. The fact remains that Kashmir is a non-issue for India. Number two, they don't want to talk to, Pakistan, even on commerce-centric. And right now, they know that Pakistan is in a fix, because after the, August 2019 actions and developments, there has been a quiet and, very sensible lull from Pakistani side, and the Indian, government and their foreign office and their various ministries, they know that at this time, if they start talking to, Pakistan, there are more cons than the pros. For Pakistan, it is very important to talk to India now. How to bring these two, countries on the negotiating table, that is the real issue, because for them, terrorism and cross-border terrorism is number one talking points agenda item. For us,
Right.
it is the final status of the Jammu and Kashmir. Now, my hope is that after the termination and completion of the second tenure of this fascist government, of this RSS-driven Narendra Modi's government, when it ends, some person with some sanity comes at the helm of affairs, and because without talking, you cannot achieve anything, not only in the diplomatic world, but actually practically also. And
Right, absolutely.
Isn't that the dream?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Najma
Thank you,
Saqib,
sir.
for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Niaz Mirza, for being
Thank
a
you,
part
sir.
of the debate. Thank you, Farouk, as always. That's all we have time for. We'll continue the discussion next week. See you on Monday.